Keith, thank you so much for joining me today. We're here to do a little walkthrough and have a chat about what's new in Esper's DevRel 44 and 45 releases. First things first, I'll have you introduce yourself, and then we're going to dive into nested groups. Nested groups underwent a really big change in DevRel 44, and I'd love to go into some more detail there. But first off, let's introduce you and tell a little more about what you do here at Esper.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Rin, and great to be here today. So I run our technical pre-sales team, and so we focus on working with customers that are evaluating Esper and the platform and how they can use it to improve their lives working with these Android dedicated device fleets.
So we've introduced the ability to have hierarchical groups with nesting capabilities of up to 5 levels. Can you explain the why behind that and how it benefits users? Why did we choose hierarchical groups? What does nesting them do?
Well,
why is that important?
Yeah, to start with, we very much listen to our customers. And so a key piece of feedback from a lot of different customer types is that the way that they want to organize their fleet relates to things like they have a customer, that customer has different locations. Even within that customer location, there are different collections, if you will, of how they want to organize those devices. You know, think of a company that sells technology into hotels. They have basically the hotel group that they work with. Then they have the different cities where the hotels are located. Within the hotels, there are different buildings. And then they want to be able to organize them based even on the floors. And so you can see that you are going several layers deep into a nested hierarchy, and having that makes it much easier for our customers to manage, because with Esper, you can take these actions at the group level, right? And so from that, if they wanted to, let's say, take the example of one floor to make a change to prototype, they could do that based on how they do their nested group design. And then from that, let's say if they had a hotel that they needed to make a change at, they can go to the right level of the nesting and apply that change at the group level, and then be able to easily keep track of those changes that they make so that they can manage it for that particular customer or across a group of customers. So it really gives our customers a lot of flexibility and ease of use in terms how they manage, hundreds, thousands of devices, 10,000 of devices using the nested groups concept.
Right. And moving devices into and out of groups has gotten easier with DevRel 44. And can you share your screen and show us how that works?
Okay. So you'll see that this is our landing page with Esper. So, a key point about what we're trying to do here and why it took us a while to design it is Esper's really about ease of use and make it very accessible for the operational person, as well as for the more hardcore IT person or even the developer in terms of using the console to understand our developer toolset. And so we kept that simplicity, we think, implementing our new devices and groups. So just one thing to show you, and this is going to go away, is that we didn't want to have too much of a context switch for our customers, because essentially what we did is we collapsed devices and groups into one. So we're keeping the devices tab here just for the next 2 sprints. We're removing it. But all you have to do is simply click, and it takes you to the new devices and groups view. So basically, you see all your devices in one place. You can work with them as you could before. So basically, this list view is a very productive one. So you can do things like you can set a filter. So let's say I just wanted to find all the online devices that are in my fleet. And so that filter will apply to whatever view you have chosen. And so you'll see at the top we have all devices. So literally that is the collector group at the top level of the hierarchy, where every device that's been enrolled in the Esper in your fleet is kept. You'll see that we have this nice little switch here that, there could be devices that are just in the all devices group and not in the subgroups. So if you just want to see those, you can flick the switch. And in this case, you can see that there's only one device that is actually in all devices. If you turn it back on, then you're going to see all the devices that are online in this particular case in your fleet that are underneath all devices, including all devices as well. So what I like to do here is show you this one for BC ski resorts. I like to ski, and there are some great ski resorts in British Columbia. So this kind of gives you a flavor for it in action. So my customers are the BC ski resorts, and these are the different customer sites where I have devices deployed that are enrolled into Esper, all the way from Apex to Whistler. So we make it very easy for you to work with it there. And when you talk about moving, well, why don't we do the same thing? So we're looking at BC ski resorts. And what I mean by that is let's turn off the hierarchy. And you can see that we have one device in BC ski resorts that needs to be deployed to a customer associated with the customer. The one interesting thing to note, kind of a side note, is that this is an Android 11 device. So we now officially support Android 11 in Esper. So bring those devices on board and start playing within Esper. A side note that there's a lot to talk about from a developer perspective and from an Esper perspective with Android 11 as they continue to tighten down in terms of consumer security. There are implications for companies that are using it for their fleets. And so topic for another day, but certainly something important to look at. So now let's say that I wanted to move this particular device. It's very simple to do. You just select it. You'll see that as before, you can take actions against this list view of devices. And one of those actions is move devices. Simply click it. And I'm actually going to move this to Whistler because this device is with Whistler, if I could spell it correctly. So you simply type it in, select the group, move it, and now it's gone. So it's been moved out of BC ski resorts. And if we go down to Whistler, we'll see our device down there. And there it is, Android 11 device. So make it very easy for you to multi-select and move so that you can manage them between the different groups.
All right, Keith, could you walk us through finding a new subgroup? How do you set up a new subgroup?
It's very easy to do. So basically, you select the top level group that you want to define the subgroup under. Now, this is a little nuance. We are fixing this in the upcoming release that you can see that this has a horizontal scroll. If you scroll over, you'll see that you have 3 different options here that are available to you, including the ellipsis with more actions. So things like rename it. You can move that particular group and all the nested groups below it to a different group if you want. But if you want to define a subgroup, it's very easy. You just click, and we're going to mess it up, and we're going to do Big Sky, which is not in BC, but we're going to add it. And boom, there you go. If you open your BC resorts back up, you'll see that Big Sky is there, available for you to move whichever devices you wish to. So very simple for you to manage, move, and keep your nested groups in order based on how you want to define your organization for your customers.
That's great. So how do you work with devices that are already in that group?
So key point. So this is all about being able to take actions against the set of devices. And so this is where the eye icon comes in. So let's say that we have an app install that we need to do across the entire group of BC ski resorts. All you do is click the view button there, and then it takes you to our tile view that shows you all the devices that are in the BC group. And with that, you have the same type of commands and actions available to you that you previously did before. So you can change settings across the group. You can view the event feed of actions that were taken against the devices in the group. And again, this is from the BC ski resorts level. If you went down to one of the nested groups, it would be in situ in context of that particular subgroup. You can push out a new compliance policy, or you can install an app. So you can see that we've been working with CPU-Z here. Let's say that we wanted to install device ID, very simple to do. And again, what I'm doing is an immediate install in this particular case. So we'll choose device ID, we'll select the version, and we can fire this command off. If you wanted to queue it, you can set it up so that it would queue for a 24-hour period to check if any offline devices come online to install it. In this case, it obviously will only install for devices that are online, so they need to be online in order to do so. And so that's how easy it is to set up. We also do the scheduled install, so if you wanted to do it during a particular time period, this is useful if you have a retail location where you want to do an app update during non-business hours when it's closed. You can schedule it here. You can have it be recurring. And make it very simple for you to be able to define that. And then finally, app state is when you have something that's in ROM that ships with the firmware. You can essentially use the package name to determine the state of that app. You can show it, meaning it'll be a shortcut on your home screen. You can hide it, not on the home screen. or you can even disable it. This is useful for some annoying apps that maybe a device maker includes that could randomly pop up because it's triggered when it's running, and you just want to make sure that it's not able to run at all. So if you want to go back, very simple. You just click back on devices and groups, and it takes you back to that devices and groups view with your nested groups and your table view of all your devices.
Another thing that a huge overhaul in DevRel 44 was pipelines. So can we talk a little bit about pipelines and what's new there?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just say that think of like pipelines as like two different views into it. So from an API perspective or from a developer perspective, what we've done is we've implemented pipelines through our CLI. That CLI implementation gives you a lot of fine-grained control over how you want to define your pipeline. So basically, you can do an unlimited number of stages. If you wanted to hook in telemetry yourself to be able to have it be the trigger to move between stages, you certainly can. So it really is, from the developer perspective, bringing a lot of flexibility in terms of how you can apply pipelines for moving apps. So again, this implementation of pipelines is currently just for app install. If you do it from the CLI, you can do uninstall and you can reboot the device. We are on the roadmap to adding a lot more capabilities to pipelines, because our view is that any configuration change you make to your fleet, you should have the ability to run it through a pipeline. But with our version 2, we're still sticking to app install, because that is the major use case that our customers run into. So again, from the developer perspective, you have a lot of power to be able to use it. It's a little different when we expose it through the console, because what we're trying to do is cover essentially what the common use case is that we see for kind of the operator in terms of how they work with pipelines. So, to show you what that means, you're fixed into a 3-stage pipeline. Again, the philosophy is you're going to have a test or development environment with a set of devices that you're going to work with. That's going to be your first stage. And then it's a manual promotion. And what that means is once that stage is finished, it's up to you as the operator to decide, are you going to promote it to the next stage? The next stage, kind of think of it as a pre-production environment. This could potentially be canaries that are out there with the customer that you predefine. And then finally, you go to the production stage where you're rolling it out to whatever you define to be the set of devices that you want to do this action on. So that's a key point, is that we give you the granularity to decide, do you want to have that stage be about individual devices that you can select? Do you want it to be about groups that you push it out to, or a mix between the two? So we give you that flexibility to be able to decide what you define your stages to be in the pipeline. But again, it is fixed to 3 stages. It is manual promotion, and it is limited to app install. So what I'm going to do here is show you an existing pipeline that I've decided, keeping with the theme of ski resorts. So we'll take a look at the one we defined for BC ski resorts. So we're in BC ski resorts, and you can see that we have changed how we approach pipelines, where in our previous implementation, the pipeline definition as well as the job were bound into one. We've now separated it so that allows you to define what devices are associated with each stage as the pipeline, and then specifically what you want to do with the app that you install as the job. So that allows you to say, hey, I want to define what are the canaries and what the rollout is from a device perspective. Keep that static. You can, of course, modify it if you wish. And that way you have basically a steady set of stages that you can use as you push out new app installs or app updates to your fleet. So in this particular case, what we did conceptually is we have this customer Apex. We have a great relationship with them. They're okay with having this Zebra device be the canary for the first stage. So this is literally one device, one canary. Let's put it out there in the real world and see what happens. In the same way that we have throughout Esper, we have this slide out that appears when you view results that makes it very easy to see what happened with that particular stage. In this case, you can see that the command successfully executed. That means the app was installed. It opens up the opportunity then to work with the customer to make sure that the device is functioning properly using your own telemetry. Again, this is manual promotion. So once this stage is complete, it's up to you to make sure that this is correct relative to you promoting the stage. The next stage is taking the remaining customers in that BC Ski Resort group and picking one Canary device per customer and using that as the next stage. So basically, you can see that we have 6 devices here, one with each of those customers. So basically, the subgroup in that nested group under BC Ski Resorts. And from that, you can then see that this stage proceeded successfully. And finally, we're set up for our last stage, manual promotion. This is a complete rollout. So this is essentially taking that BC Ski Resort group and then executing the pipeline, the stage, to be able to install this new version across all the devices. So you'll see that we did it for that one group, BC Ski Resort. So very smooth, right? Canary per customer, all the devices for that group for all those different customers. And so finally, viewing the results, you can see that we successfully pushed it off across all the groups, but we tell you what happened. So this happens, right? In some cases, perhaps someone else at an individual device level installed that app on that device. First of all, that's good to know because maybe your operator was doing something they shouldn't have been doing. And so you can go see who executed that command to follow up to make sure that procedurally things are being properly taken care of. But for the rest of them, you can see that the command was issued successfully. This is great. If you have an issue in pushing this out, you can go ahead and address that issue and basically get it taken care of. One other detail is that when you use pipelines to do app install, you essentially are in a 24-hour queue. And so you have basically 1 day from when you fired it off for that to be completely run through. Another detail is this can be, in a sense, to you a little out of sync with what's being indicated in terms of the progress of the stage. So what I mean by that is if you view results, you'll see that, hey, it was successfully installed across all the devices, but it's not showing up as a stage being complete. That's part of the fit and finish that we will not declare a stage complete until all the background cleanup work in our cloud is done. So there can be a delay from when you see view results to when it actually shows as the stage being completed through the pipeline. You can do things like if you want to, you can terminate the pipeline early, you can stop it. We currently don't support rollback. That's coming up in a future version of this for the console. But through the CLI, you can essentially do rollback if you want by firing off the uninstall command. So right now it's up to you to do that programmatically. And that's something that we're going to be bringing forward in the console to make it available to the operators. You can see that essentially that the last job that was run here was terminated as it was finishing up. And so you have that ability to basically control it as you wish.
The other thing that got a massive overhaul in DevRel 44 was pipelines. Esper pipelines allow you to perform easy and controlled operations on your fleet of devices. So the changes we brought with this release are updates to manual triggers on pipelines, removing the limit on the number of stages in a pipeline, auto-saving creation and edits made in a pipeline, and smoother installation of applications on multiple groups and devices. So let's walk through that a little bit if we can.
Yes, yeah. So, as you see in the console, we're limiting it to 3, right? We're trying to cover kind of the core use case for the operator that's working with it through the console. But if you are a developer, we certainly encourage you to install our Esper CLI. Here's our GitHub page with it. And using the CLI, we give you the full power of pipelines through it. So why don't we jump down to the pipeline docs down here. So I would suggest that you basically pull this up and check it out where from the CLI, you can define your pipeline. And with that, also define whatever number of stages that you want to create for your pipeline. And with that, then be able to also define whatever jobs you want to associate with that particular pipeline with each stage that you define. So essentially, think of it as giving you whatever flexibility you want. It's the pro mode, essentially, right? The normal mode is what we put in the console. The pro mode is available through the CLI. And so if you want to get the full power of this pipeline V2 implementation, install the Esper CLI, check out our docs, play around with it, and see what you think.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Keith. And was there anything else that you'd like to highlight?
One interesting aspect that we've gotten feedback on is big files, big APKs. And so we now support APK upload up to 2 gigabytes. we're seeing this around kind of machine learning models, right? A lot of our customers are exploring how to implement basically machine learning on the edge. And in order to do that, you have to load the models locally on the devices. And so we opened up the size of the APK. We also are delivering a feature that will allow you to push any type of file up to 2 gigabytes to your fleet. And so this is using the same kind of group command if you wanted to. And so that's for the situation where you separate your model from your APK. So basically, whichever approach you decide to implement your solution, all bound into the APK or a separate file from the APK, we're going to support that by mid-October, and you'll be good to go.
Well, that sounds great. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I thank everyone for watching What's New in DevRel 44. And we look forward to bringing you another video on what's new here at Esper.
Right on, Ren. Thank you so much.